thanks for watching this video. I made this video as just kind of a response to a lot of criticism I've seen from right-wingers or libertarians who are talking about how the left is so anti-gun, and I just wanted to dispel some myths that I've seen perpetuated and repeated by people on the right. And the thing I've seen in about 6 or 7 years or so of being involved in the gun community, be it on Facebook or on gun forums online or YouTube even, I've seen a lot of people who compare California, for example, to communist nations, that calling it like Commifornia and stuff like that, and that shows a distinctive vitriol toward the left. And I think that a lot of that confusion comes from the fact that in the U.S., our politics are so center-right. Like, the Republicans are pretty center-right, and the Democrats are pretty center-right. And if you want an explanation on that and why I believe that, there'll be a link in the comments about why we're such a centrist country. And I think one thing that's used by the Democrats and the Republicans to create an appearance that they're actually different instead of just being both centrist parties is that one supports gun rights, the other doesn't. So that's kind of led to that. And you have people calling people like Obama and Hillary, socialist, when I've never heard either of them advocating for worker ownership and control of businesses and workplaces. So they do not meet any definition of socialist. Now, in the left, there's a lot of people who actually advocate for gun ownership. I'm not talking about Democrats, of course. There are quite a few Democrats who own guns. I mean, if you look at the stats, there's I believe it's 30% of Democrats, self-proclaimed Democrats, own guns, compared to over 50% of Republicans. But there's actually quite a few Democrats who own guns. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the left. But when I say the left, I mean anarchist, socialist, anything from, anarcho-syndicalist, meaning that you just believe in organizing workplaces, all the way up to Marxist-Leninist Maoists. Most leftists support guns because we realize that, organizations like the Black Panthers, there were racist gun laws that were put into place in California, the source of California's Commifornia gun laws. We realize that any leftist organization that tries to arm itself and defend itself using the same exact methods as centrist or right-wing organizations will be just smashed by the state, and gun laws will be put into place regardless of whether that administration supposedly supports the Second Amendment or not. So we realize that, and if you look at actually existing socialist countries in the past, like the USSR and China, and I'm not saying actually existing socialism like Eric Honecker said, I'm saying countries that did exist that were socialist. Say the USSR up until 1924 had no restrictions on gun ownership. Throughout the entire reign of the USSR up until 1991, guns were still completely legal to own in the rural settings. In the cities, they were pretty much banned. But even up until when it was still state capitalist after Stalin died, it still continued to have some ways of owning guns. Be it, I think it was restricted to bolt-action rifles and shotguns. But still, there were ways of legal gun ownership in the USSR. Another common one that people on the right point to is China. Now, in China, if you look at Mao's writings and things like that, he always emphasized the fact that the workers had to be armed, and if the workers weren't armed, there was no way the workers could be liberated. So, anybody that tries to say that, Mao tried to ban guns or anything like that is just, spewing disinformation, because up until, I believe it was 1975 or something like that, or it was sometime late into the 70s, early 80s, guns were completely legal in China, and everybody was encouraged to own guns. There's photos of people with Mosin Nagant rifles, in in the squares and in the towns after the Cultural Revolution and after the Republic of China had been ousted to Taiwan. They led the world in production of SKSs like this one. And there was a lot of guns in China up until the state capitalist government decided to ban private gun ownership, which, with Deng Xiaoping, a lot of his market reforms were greatly disliked by the Chinese working class, and look at where China is now. You have people jumping out of buildings because the working conditions are so bad. So, that's a whole other story as well. But another one that's currently existing is Rojava, which is a region in northern Syria, which is predominantly Kurdish, and it's one of the first, in modern times, Kurdish nations that's actually self-determined Kurdish nation. Now, in Rojava, they have a military system that's rather interesting. They have the Syrian Defense Force, and they also have the YPG and YPJ. The YPG is a militia, and the YPJ is the women's militia. Everybody's supposed to be armed. Every citizen of Rojava, anybody living in Rojava, has the ability to get any sort of weapon they want, be it a rocket launcher or a handgun, You can have any sort of small arms that you want. And I know several people there even have tanks that are built out of cars, even though those are mostly community-owned within the YPG and YPJ. So if you look at socialism as it is now, at least in the West, most socialists in the West do support gun ownership, because we realize that, like the Second Amendment was originally intended, that's up for interpretation by some, was to build the checks and balances against the federal government, so they could not create a tyrannical system like the British did in the British imperialist and colonialist conquest that happened during the 16th, 17th century. But because of that, we are also citizens of the United States, so we have the ability to utilize the Second Amendment, and we realize that organizations in the past that have been armed have been, squashed by the government. So we're going to exercise our right to the Second Amendment, and there's organizations that do that, like Ammo Can. I've got Socialist Rifle Association sticker for self-defense. And there's several other organizations such as the John Brown Gun Club and Redneck Revolt, which is my favorite one. They have some really cool stuff. They mainly focus on helping people like in coal mining country, like, Appalachia, and just engaging with workers there. They go to gun shows, and it's providing an alternative to some of the racist and reactionary elements that could be found in gun culture. So, that leads me to my final point, which is, if you see a leftist, or if you're not necessarily a leftist, if you see a leftist and, you think that they're just anti-gun, that's just simply not true. And there's some links in the description below, and they'll have some information about why a lot of the stuff you hear about socialist governments banning guns is simply untrue, why a lot of it is propaganda made up by anti-socialist organizations, and some of it's even made up by the CIA, which is notoriously anti-socialist. And there will also be some information about Redneck Revolt and some information about where you can kind of help out a little bit, and if you like what you hear, learn a little bit more, because there's a lot of cool stuff that Redneck Revolt does. They have range days, they have training, safety training, live fire drills and stuff like that. Some really cool stuff. So definitely look into that, and look at the link about how the myth of the socialist gun laws is simply untrue. And that's by Jason Unruh, I believe, Mouse Trouble News. That's a really good website, too, for news, even though he's a third worldist. But thanks for watching, and have a great day.